Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something really quite significant. The new India-UK Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA.
That's right.
It was just signed July 24th, 2025. And look, this isn't just another piece of paper. It feels like a major step, doesn't it? For business, for economic ties.
Oh, absolutely. Monumental is probably the right word.
And it could touch so many things. The car you drive, maybe your weekend whiskey, even the clothes in your wardrobe.
Exactly. And that's what we want to do today. Really cut through the headlines and jargon.
Get to the core of it.
Yeah, pull out the key things from this massive agreement, help you understand not just what's in it, but why it actually matters for both countries and, potentially for you directly.
Okay, so let's start unpacking. This deal is called comprehensive. What does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah.
Beyond the name. And what about tariffs? That's usually the first thing people think of.
Well, comprehensive here really means it. It touches, almost every part of the economy you can think of. Agriculture, manufacturing, consumer goods, tech, services. It's all in there.
Right.
And on tariffs, the numbers are pretty striking. You've got 99% of Indian exports heading to the UK getting tariff-free access. 99%.
Wow.
And going the other way, 85% of UK goods get duty-free access into India. And just to give a sense of scale, on India's side, they've cut their average tariffs from 15% down to about 3% because of this deal.
15 down to 3, that's a huge drop.
It's a significant move, signals real intent to open things up.
Okay, those are big initial numbers. But beyond the tariffs, what about the economic forecast? What are the governments actually predicting this will do for trade?
Yeah.
And how does that stack up against, the current situation? Are these projections seen as realistic across the board?
Yeah, the governments are definitely painting a very positive picture. Optimistic, maybe even transformative. They're estimating jointly about a $25.5 billion annual boost to trade between the two countries.
$25 billion a year.
Yeah. And the UK government specifically thinks British exports to India could jump by 60% over time.
60%.
60%. Now, context is important here. End of 2024, trade was around $45 billion. But, and this is key, India only accounted for about 2% of the UK's total trade. Just 2%.
Only 2%. Compared to the EU or China, that's tiny.
Exactly. The EU is around 50%, China about 11%. So that 2% figure isn't just a statistic, it highlights the strategic thinking here for the UK.
Okay. Diversification post-Brexit.
Precisely. The UK is looking for new, growing partners, and India projected to be the world's third largest economy by 2030. Well, it's not just a new market. It's a crucial partner for rethinking supply chains, reducing reliance on, perhaps more established or volatile relationships. It's strategic alignment.
That context makes a lot of sense. It's not just about the immediate pounds and pence. It's longer-term positioning.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got the big picture, but the devil's always in the details, right?
Yeah.
Especially with these trade deals. How does this break down sector by sector? Let's start with cars. Automotive industry. What changes here?
Okay, cars. For UK exports coming into India, what they call completely built-up units, CBU's tariffs are coming down dramatically from 100%.
100%.
Yeah, steep, down to 10%. But, and this is important, it's under a tariff rate quota system, a TRQ.
Okay, what does that mean, TRQ?
It means a certain volume of cars can come in at that lower 10% rate. Once that quota is filled for the year, the rate likely goes back up. It's a way for India to manage the flow, open up gradually, let the local industry adjust rather than just opening the floodgates overnight.
Right, give them breathing room.
Exactly. And for the really high-end stuff, luxury cars over 80,000 pounds. Tariffs there drop from over 100% down to around 40% starting in year 6. And then eventually over 15 years down to that same 10%.
So a phased approach for luxury, too.
Very much so. Though even with the quotas, you'd expect some near-term disruption maybe in that luxury segment. More competitive pricing becomes possible.
Okay, so that's the UK exporting to India. What about India's own car makers? Are they worried? Or is there something in the deal for them?
Well, there's actually quite a bit of comfort built in for the Indian domestic industry, especially for the mass market cars. The deal specifically doesn't give tariff concessions for British electric hybrid or hydrogen cars if their value, the CIF value, is below $40,000.
So protecting the smaller, locally made car market.
Exactly. It safeguards that segment pretty well. And honestly, the general feeling is that competition from UK car makers isn't a massive threat to the big Indian players. India actually exports more cars than it imports, so they're coming from a position of strength domestically.
Got it. Okay, moving from the finished cars to the nuts and bolts components, engineering goods, this sounds like it could be a win-win.
Oh, absolutely. This is a really fundamental part of the deal, I think. Because it supports manufacturing on both sides. The UK is cutting duties on these kinds of imports from India, think components, from 18% right down to 0.
18 to 0? That's huge for Indian suppliers.
Massive. It makes them very competitive, especially for things like EV components going into UK supply chains. And then India is cutting its duties on UK engineering imports from over 100%.
Again, over 100%.
Down to 10%. Also under a quota system, but one that gets gradually liberalized.
Meaning the quota amount increases over time.
Exactly. More can come in duty-free each year. So Indian industry gets access to UK tech and precision goods, but it's managed. It allows adaptation. It's really about integrating the manufacturing bases, making both stronger.
Okay, that makes sense. Integration, not just trade. Let's switch gears. Textiles and clothing. India is a giant in this area. How does the agreement affect them?
This is a huge win for India's textile and clothing sector. Simple as that. They get zero duty access to the UK market. Full stop.
And why is that so important?
Because it puts them on a level playing field. Competitors like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Vietnam, Turkey, they already had similar deals giving them low or zero tariffs into the UK. India didn't. Now they do. That disadvantage is gone.
Right, levels the playing field.
Completely. And the industry body, Texbrasil, they're really optimistic. They're talking about trade possibly doubling, maybe more, going from about $1.4 billion now to potentially $3 billion within 3 years.
$3 billion. Just in textiles and clothing.
That's their projection. It means more market share, potentially more jobs in India. It's significant.
Wow. Okay, now for something maybe a little stronger, alcoholic beverages. What's the impact there? Especially, I imagine, on things like Scotch whiskey.
Yes, Scotch whiskey. This is one where consumers in India might notice a difference quite directly. It's set to become cheaper.
How much cheaper? The tariffs are famously high, right?
Famously high. Currently 150%. That's going to be cut straight away to 75% when the deal kicks in.
Halved immediately.
Halved. And then 10 years down the line, it drops further to 40%.
Okay.
So that's obviously great news for UK distillers, opens up that massive Indian market. But it also means more competition for the local Indian companies who often import Scotch in bulk and then bottle it or blend it. They'll face pressure from cheaper direct imports. Changes the whole price dynamic.
Right, shakes things up locally. Okay, sticking with consumer impact, what about just general everyday stuff? Consumer products, FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods. What's in the deal there?
Yeah, there are bits and pieces here, too. For Indian producers, the UK is giving zero-duty access for things like marine products, jewelry, leather goods, footwear. That's a good boost, especially for medium-sized businesses in those areas.
Okay. And for Indian shoppers?
For Indian shoppers, well, import duty on perfumes gets halved. Duties on things like soaps, shaving creams, face creams, nail polish, they'll either go to zero straight away or maybe after 10 years, depending on the item.
So potentially more choice, maybe lower prices on some imported goods.
Potentially, yeah. It could mean more competition for the Indian FMCG companies. Although, interesting twist, some big players like Hindustan Unilever, who have a UK presence, might actually benefit. They could import more from their global range into India. So it could spur innovation, maybe challenge some local dominance.
Interesting dynamic. Okay, finally, let's talk services. Both the UK and India are big players here. The agreement mentions softer aspects. What does that mean in real terms?
Right. Softer aspects sounds a bit vague, but the impact is quite concrete. It means things like making it easier for Indian service providers to access the UK market. Think simplified visa processes for skilled workers, better terms on Social Security contributions when people move temporarily.
So making it easier for talent to move.
Essentially, yes. It helps the UK attract skilled people from India, which can fill labor gaps. For India's huge IT services sector, this could mean lower costs for sending teams to the UK, maybe even using the UK as a better springboard into continental Europe.
Ah, gateway effect.
Could be. And it's not just IT. The deal apparently has good outcomes for architects, engineers, chefs, even yoga instructors and musicians. It's about facilitating that exchange of skills and talent.
That sounds quite broad. Okay, so we've looked at cars, components, clothes, drinks, goods, services. What about bigger picture market access, like government contracts? That's often a huge market, but sometimes closed off.
That's a really interesting point, and yes, the deal addresses it. UK companies provided they meet a certain threshold for sourcing locally within India, about 20%, they can now bid for Indian government procurement contracts.
Really? For goods, services, infrastructure projects?
That seems to be the scope. And historically, yes, Indian government procurement has often favored domestic companies. It's been relatively shielded from outside competition.
So this could really open things up.
It could. It raises the question, will this increase competition, drive efficiency, maybe lead to better pricing for public projects? It's potentially quite a significant shift, bringing more global standards into that space.
Yeah. It really does sound like a far-reaching agreement. Loads of potential upside. But, as always, the proof is in the pudding, right? Implementation must be key. Are there concerns there? Or wider ripple effects?
Absolutely. Implementation is everything. The potential is there on paper, but making it work on the ground is crucial, especially in India with its federal structure.
Meaning getting the states on board.
Exactly. The benefits really need to trickle down effectively to the state level, where a lot of the actual regulation and policy happens. Ensuring that happens smoothly and uniformly across the country, that's going to be a challenge.
Okay.
And then there's the ripple effect. The EU has been negotiating its own trade deal with India for ages. This UK deal might just nudge them along a bit faster.
Why is that?
Well, they won't want to lose out, will they? Seeing the UK get preferential access to what's going to be the world's third biggest economy, the EU might feel the pressure to finalize their own pact to avoid being disadvantaged. Creates a bit of competitive urgency.
So this deep dive really shows it's a complex, potentially transformative deal, affecting big industries, everyday items, even global trade dynamics.
It really does. It touches so much, and I think hopefully breaking it down like this clarifies not just the clauses, but the strategy behind it all. And maybe it leaves you thinking, as these huge global agreements become more common, how much do we as citizens need to understand the details? What's our responsibility to grasp the long-term impact on our economies, our jobs, our lives?
A really important question to reflect on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.